Switch to the Nintendo Switch 2. That's what Nintendo wants you to do. The Switch 2 is one of the most highly anticipated consoles, yet one of the worst kept secrets of all time in terms of game consoles. Now, I'm gonna get this out of the way first. I've been on the record saying that I don't believe this is going to be called the Switch 2, because Nintendo's never named anything like anything 2. But Nintendo, breaking tradition, named it the Switch 2. Which I think is stupid. They should have named it the Super Switch. That would have been a lot cooler. So they unveiled a trailer and they unveiled a bigger Switch. It's slightly bigger, slightly more elongated, and the controllers are a little bit bigger. The mechanism for attaching Joy-Cons is completely different. The original Nintendo Switch operated with Joy-Con rails. Essentially, you would slide devices in and they would snap, making the iconic clicking sound that you all know and love. But instead of doing that, it kind of just goes in, like you just push it in directly into the console, and I think this is a lot easier, but part of me wonders how breakable this middle piece is. I mean, surely some kid on Christmas is gonna get their Switch 2, and then they're gonna accidentally snap that little piece off, meaning their left or right Joy-Con is non-functional. It's going to happen. Also of interest is this little animation of the Joy-Con sliding on the table. Presumably enabled by, the Joy-Con guards that have straps on them. Now, if you've heard about the leaks, then you've probably heard about the fact that the Switch 2 is supposed to have optical sensors on the controllers themselves, allowing you to essentially place the Joy-Con down, using as a sort of mouse with the bumper and trigger acting as, left click and right click. Now, kind of like how they teased Super Mario Odyssey before the game even got a name, they're teasing a new Mario Kart here. This looks like a new Mario Kart, and Mario Kart's pretty fun. Have you ever played Mario Kart? What the Switch 2 needs, though, is a new Zelda at launch. A new graphically demanding Zelda akin to like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I don't know, maybe like a Tears of the Kingdom 2? Another major important detail is backwards compatibility. I firmly believe Nintendo would have shot themselves in the foot if the Switch 2 wasn't backwards compatible with Switch 1 games, of which I actually own a few. And yes, this includes both physical and digital, though if you have a physical copy, it's going to be a lot easier. Of course, it says here that certain Nintendo Switch games may not be supported or fully compatible with the Switch 2. What could Nintendo mean by this? Well, at a later date, Nintendo will tell us what they mean exactly. But if I had to guess, it probably has to do with Nintendo Labo, if you guys remember that. All the Labo stuff is very dependent on the Switch 1 Joy-Con, so there's a good chance Nintendo's just gonna make Labo 2 or whatever. And of course, we're gonna get a Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2 on April the 2nd. Now, this is a date Nintendo Switch fans should be looking forward to, because we're going to hear more about the Switch 2, probably what it's capable of, and of course, the games. What good is a Switch without games, right? Now let's talk about the implications with the current handheld market. First and foremost, let's talk about the fact that this completely eclipses the original Switch and makes it mostly unnecessary. Unless, of course, the Switch 2 doesn't come with an OLED model. Now, the Nintendo Switch did not have an OLED screen to begin with, and let's be honest, the Switch's screen isn't all that good. The OLED screen is a lot better on the Switch OLED, of course. It would be terrible if the Switch 2 didn't come with OLED by default, or maybe even an OLED model that's a little more expensive, I guess if Nintendo wants to go that way. Like, it would feel terrible to have a Switch OLED and then go down and just downgrade to a Switch 2 with an LCD display. Like, that would feel awful, and I would feel the same way too if the Steam Deck 2 didn't have an OLED model by default. Now let's talk about the Steam Deck, because a lot of people are going to wonder what's better, the Switch 2 or the Steam Deck in terms of performance. Now, I've seen a lot of comments saying that the Switch 2 is going to blow the Steam Deck out of the water because it has a slightly higher teraflop count. But you can't really compare teraflops between different architectures of GPU and CPU altogether. It's also worth mentioning that teraflops, it's just a measurement of throughput. Different CPUs and GPUs provide more performance per flop, meaning that not all teraflops are created equally. And let's be honest, teraflops are not the end-all be-all statistic when it comes to performance. And developers have traditionally moved heaven and earth for the Nintendo Switch, and they'll do the same for the Switch 2. But developers haven't really been doing that for the Steam Deck, so it might make things look a little worse when you put things side by side in the future. And I firmly believe AAA developers need to start optimizing games for the Steam Deck. Like, yeah, it's a PC, I get it, but they could treat the Steam Deck as like the lowest common denominator of PCs. They could optimize for the Steam Deck, and in turn, it benefits all PCs. It's a pet peeve of mine, and honestly, the Switch 2 is the new kid on the block. The Steam Deck 1, however, is almost 3 years old at this point. It's pretty obvious that the newer hardware is going to be more powerful and probably more power efficient, to be honest. And let's talk about Nintendo's favorite subject, Nintendo Switch emulation. The Switch 2, it's no secret. It's the reason why they decided to go after Switch emulation. The worry probably was that these developers could just update their Switch emulators to run Switch 2 games once they got decrypted and once the Switch 2 got hacked. The Switch 1 was super duper easy to hack because there was a hardware vulnerability that could not be patched out, at least for the first few launch models. I know I have one of those, and I know I've hacked mine too, so there's that too. And of course, let's talk about Switch accessories. A lot of the accessories I've reviewed for the Steam Deck also work on the Switch. In fact, I would say like 90% of all the controllers I've reviewed on this channel are made for Nintendo Switch, but just so happen to work on the Steam Deck because, well, Switch controllers work on PC. But we don't really know if Nintendo Switch controllers are forwards compatible with the Switch 2. I mean, it would kind of suck if they weren't, right? Like, to be fair, I understand the Joy-Con 1s probably would not fit the Joy-Con 2 slots, like, at all. But I feel like you could still connect them via Bluetooth and, you know, still play Mario Party that way. Like, it would suck to have to buy another pair of these because Joy-Cons at launch were pretty expensive. And to be honest, they still kind of are. I have no reason to believe that the Switch Pro controllers and all the third-party ones that exist wouldn't work on this Switch 2. Like, I have no reason to believe that they would just lock those controllers out. But this is Nintendo we're talking about, and Nintendo loves selling you hardware. So there's a good chance they may lock you out of that too. But hey, what if those companies just updated the controller firmwares to support the Switch 2? I'm sure that's possible, right? Maybe, I don't know, actually. For me though, what I'm most interested in is the battery life, because the Switch had pretty decent battery life after the first hardware revision. You know, the first hardware revision that couldn't be hacked via hardware methods. And of course, I'm gonna put my Switch 2 through the ringer. You know, the battery life ringer. You guys want to see me use my Nintendo Switch and battery test it, don't you? With specific games, don't you? Will this incite a Steam Deck versus Nintendo Switch 2 war? Yes, and I'm all for it because that's kind of funny. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.